Hello everyone and welcome back to Bricks and Banter, the Cope & Co podcast. We have got 3 new faces. Has anyone been on the podcast yet?
No, I got cut out the last one actually.
Oh, you didn't make it. Well, there's still time, it's fine. We're going to do today a Newcomers episode, even though you've all been here. I mean, how long? When did you start? September, October. Yeah, so a few months from our end, but probably for clients and other people listening, you haven't been here for that long. So as James just kindly mentioned, this isn't an ego trip. I'm not expecting everyone to big up working at Cope & Co. Just a nice insight would be great. We are going to touch on kind of how it differs from previous companies, obviously no company names, and specifically no bad mouthing. Not that any of you have got the capacity to bad mouth them, but just as a comparison to how we work, how our processes are, what it's been like coming into the industry, because I know Emma, it's relatively new for you.
Yeah.
Nina, you were in there 3 or 4 months, a bit more than that before.
Since the start of July.
Yeah, July, and then obviously Beth, you've been in slightly longer. So, but what it's like to come into the industry, and probably an insight into what you would recommend to friends and things like that. Because I hate to admit it, but I am the oldest one here. So we have, in terms of people, first-time renters, first-time buyers, you know, we're all kind of at that age, despite the averages at the moment. So I'm going to start with you, Beth, because you've been in the industry for the longest. So how do you feel kind of our processes differ compared to where you have been before? And in terms of the general ethos, do you think the fact that it's independent family has an effect, or do you think it doesn't really portray that much kind of through our day-to-day?
Yeah, so I think with the process it is very different to where I was previously. Where I was previously, we would wait for the applicant to send across all the details to us. The application would take 3 months pay slips, 3 months bank statements, as well as ID, and just wait for that to come across, which usually sometimes it would take about a few days to come. Where here we just, as soon as the viewing takes place, we give the applicant a call and we've got the application, pass it across to the landlord, and during the application stage where they're going through referencing is when we get all the documents. So the turnaround is a lot more quicker than where I was previously. I think with it being a family agent, it's a lot better, I think, because there is corporates out there which take a bit longer, and they've not got a lot of corporates, especially in Derby, but they don't have the best of reputations just because they mainly focus on the numbers, not the people that they're putting into the properties and what the property's like, what the landlord's like, etc. It's mainly just all about money, making money and stuff like that. Whereas it's a family agent, everyone understands, we're all people at the end of the day, like everything. But it's just great.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Do you feel, obviously because we're being new to the industry, in terms of the amount of knowledge that you have to have, because obviously, I mean, we all talk about this quite often about landlords going self-managing, current economy and money saving and things like that. Would you say that you were quite shocked at how much legislation, regulation and probably the length of the processes, or was it expected, or?
I feel like it was expected. I think probably the thing that you probably find the most hard when starting in a new business is where you might know, okay, that landlord has these set fees, they have this that they'll always do every time they move somebody in, they'll never do the move in even though they're not on that service level, and you guys just know that off the cuff. I don't know that information. I do now, but you have to just wait till you do it to get to know it. You can't put that all down like pen on paper. And also I would say I was probably aware of all the legislations that were in place, because I just feel like that's the same with everything. There's so much in depth, processes that need to happen. But yeah, it's more the personal stuff that you wouldn't know unless you worked here. When you worked with that direct landlord, that it takes time, because you could, you've got a blueprint on how to do stuff, how to set up a file. But then there might be one landlord, we don't do that for them. Okay, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I get that.
But now I do know that. And then you apply it on your next file when you have your next one of their properties, or it's next on the market. So then it's like building that knowledge, and then as soon as you've got all of that under your belt, it's a breeze.
Yeah. I think it's building that rapport with people, isn't it, as well? When obviously no matter what industry you go into, you've always got that bit in between where you're don't really know the clients that you're working with, and I think we're quite fortunate that a lot of the landlords that you're specifically mentioning probably are portfolio landlords, hence the difference in quite a few things, to be honest. But we've worked with them for so long that fortunately we have got that rapport that they know that there is in every business a obviously employee turnover. So I think that's always good to have. But the legislation's quite a lot, but I think in terms of training and stuff like that, it's been I think it's been quite seamless, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
Even when you come from a different agent, for example, I think we definitely treat it as the same as if you come from out of industry, because ultimately, like you've mentioned, Beth, it's completely different.
Yeah, every agent's different, isn't it? Different processes, different clients. Like what Emma was saying, like with my old place, I knew, at the back of your hand exactly what the landlord wants, how the process is, and when you come here, it's completely different. Every landlord is different.
Sorry, that may be a small dog. Actually, he often is involved in the podcast.
Completely forgot what I was saying.
Just in terms of it being different.
Yeah, definitely.
And knowing your clients.
Yeah, I agree with Emma there.
Yeah. I'm trying not to mention anything too personal. In general, for you, Nina, do you... Because obviously you've been in the industry since July, so how many months? It's not even really that long to get to know the ins and outs. How do you feel as though you've grasped it while you've been here? Because obviously Beth mentioned it is very fast paced. And we are not pushy. I wouldn't go that far, but because we have so many applicants that come through, if we don't chase people miss out. That then it's kind of like it's a lose-lose, because then you've got people complaining that they've missed out. How do you feel like in terms of how fast paced we are, do you feel like that's different to where you were before, or is it kind of similar?
100%. No, it's a lot faster paced. The whole application process, from like referencing to, like Beth said, the applications and the IDs and all the other documents, it's a lot faster here, and especially the move-ins, whereas before it would take like...
What was your turnover time? So from the time where they've viewed the property to them moving in, what would be the fastest you could get someone in?
We always work to the holding deposit. If the property's empty, obviously it'd be like a week
quicker,
or so. But if there's a tenant in there, we'd work to the holding deposit end of the date, and here it's 14 days. The deadline date, there it was 15 days, here it's 14 days. So that would be the last day we can get the tenant in and get everything sorted. So we always put the anticipated moving date for the last day of the holding deposit.
I think one thing that we're very focused on, and we definitely have been for to be honest, probably before I even came into the business, is those turnover times, because you don't appreciate how much money a landlord can lose out on in that void period.
100%.
And it isn't just the rent, it's the council tax, it's the energy bills, which obviously we've had a whole energy crisis at the moment. So that is something that I think you guys get quite bored of me saying let's on, moving's on, because if you have that obviously lengthened period of time, it's more difficult to manage expectations, isn't it?
100%.
Is the bottom line of it. Obviously there's quite a lot of new legislation coming in, which I'm not going to touch on too much. Do you guys feel like you get quite a lot of questions from clients, whether that's landlords or tenants or applicants, in terms of actual legislation? Do you feel like you have to explain a lot, or do you think people just go with the flow?
I think people just go with the flow. It depends who the person is, isn't it, at the end of the day. But I think because it's always out there, always on the news, people have an idea of what's really going on. They don't tend to ask questions. It's only the people that don't really use the news or social media and stuff that tend to ask the questions.
I feel like there's enough out there that if you want the answer to the question, you can find it yourself.
Definitely.
And then the people that maybe aren't as tech savvy, that's where we can step in and kind of let them know. We recently had a landlord that was questioning what to do because they weren't sure on people staying at the property, and whether it would then turn it into like a HMO license. I think they were maybe a little bit unsure on what their rights were, and then that's where we can step in and be like, you're well within your rights to tell them to change that. Or you know, I think it's always awkward when, you know, they don't know how you found out that information, and then we're there to, you know, maybe guide them into a sense of, you know, you were in the local area,
how to negotiate
it, but also keeping your tenant happy, because at the end of the day, if they turn around and they no longer want to carry on the tenancy, they're at the start of their journey again, we're finding a new one, they might not want to
reletting costs, you've got the whole
reletting
thing.
costs, you might not want to do that all over again. So I think that's where we can just offer a bit of support, and even though we might be saying exactly what they were going to do, just maybe saying, you know, this is the route that you can go down, this is what you can do if you want them out, or if you want them to stay in, this is how I would speak to them. Speak to people how you'd always want to be spoken to as well. And I think they appreciate it, even though they probably knew all of that anyway, and they could have probably found that information online. Having someone to tell them over the phone probably goes a long way.
I think it's just a confidence thing, isn't it? Like, we have so many landlords that have been professional landlords for probably longer than I've been alive, and they'll still ask the question because obviously we're here as the agent to provide them the answers anyway, and B, as I've just mentioned, legislation and everything like that is changing all the time, so whilst that may have been the case 20 years ago when we told them, it really might not be the case now. But just touch on that actually, Emma, with our service levels, I've definitely had the feedback from landlords that maybe we've done management takeovers on, in terms of how defined they are, because obviously unlike a lot of agents, we actually have 4 service levels. So a lot of agents will have tenant find and fully managed, and that's kind of, which I think is what you guys have experienced.
We did
before.
have rent collect, but it was just like the odd one. It wasn't always
really sold.
Yeah.
So we've got the tenant find, the rent collect, the fully managed, and then we've got the let simple, which is beneficial for portfolio landlords, really, rather than landlords that have got single properties. But what's your guys' opinion in terms of how defined do you think they are? Because the situation that you just mentioned was actually a tenant find landlord, and obviously we're still quite open to giving that advice. Would you agree that we're quite, I mean, they're not, I wouldn't say the service levels are that defined in terms of who we're willing to help and who we're not? Because I think a lot of people experience that with other agents.
I think it depends on the situation. If it's literally just some advice on, you know, what would you do in the situation if you know, found out that your tenant was doing this, I think it would kind of be a bit helpful, because you could speak to anyone about that. Like, it wouldn't necessarily need to be someone that's in the industry. It's just like, how would you treat someone if you were in that situation? When it starts going down the route of, you know, well, what should I implement? Like, what notices should I serve? Like, all this, I think that's where a fully managed service would benefit them. Or, you know, if they're wanting to use our contacts for, you know,
works
the
and things
works
like that.
and stuff like that, I think that's where we then aren't really going to step in, because if you wanted to use that service with the people that we've got, then that's why we've got
paying for it.
Other people are paying for it, and then you're also allowing yourself to have access to those people. That's what the fully managed is for, and that's where we can then support you, and then we can get in contact with the engineers, we can sort it all on your behalf, we can send you the invoice, get that all sorted, you know, and then the pressure's off the landlord. But when they kind of want to use that, and all they'd then be stepping in and doing would be sorting it and organising the invoice, it's a little bit like you kind
of a bit blurred lines, isn't it?
Yeah, it's blurred lines, and you don't want to offer too much, and then you actually could have maybe convince them to do a fully managed service, which would make it a lot easier and a lot more streamlined for the landlord.
I think that's the thing, Ken, you touched on it before, Beth, about corporates kind of being a money making machine. I think one thing that we always say here, or definitely Darren, obviously with a finance background, talks about it a lot, we don't shy away from the fact that we are a business and we are here to make money, and that is the bottom line. But I suppose the onus is on us to make sure the service reflects that, which I think probably then is reflected in how much we will help people in terms of advice compared to actual service. It's kind of a different ball game. I'm just gonna move on to, because James told me that it was really wordy last time and I spoke too much, so I'm weary. What are the main piece of advice you would give to a friend looking to rent or Sal? And Nina, I'm going to ask you because you're the quietest out of all 4 of us.
I guess it depends what you're looking for. So you need to sort of have an idea of what you'd be looking for, sort of where, like you need to know the details, if you know what I mean. And then and you need to like,
You just need to know what you're looking for, don't you?
yeah, you need to know what you're looking for, because there's only so much help that we can give. Like, for example, if you've got like a tenant that's looking to move out soon, and they're just saying, can you help me find a new property? Well, we're going to need to know where, the location, how many bedrooms.
Yeah, I
all
think
of those
sometimes
things.
we get quite a few people ringing up, don't we, with, I've got a budget of, for example, £700
Yeah.
and I want the Hilton area, which is fine, but then it's like an additional step to the process, because then you've got to send them over adverts that we've got.
Yeah.
By that time, you've probably booked however many other people in for a viewing.
Exactly.
And then you're already one step behind. So I suppose it's kind of approaching an agent, like you said, knowing what you want, so you're already past that stage.
Yeah.
What would you, if kind of a friend came to you and said, I'm going to go, I'm applying for this property, the landlord self-managers, do you have any advice on that? Do you think, from your point of view, what would your reaction to that be? Do you think there's much difference because we do get quite a few people that ask, do you manage this, or does the landlord self-manage? Normally because they've had a previously bad experience with the landlord.
Yeah.
But would you say that you would go with the advice of, well, I'd try and get something managed by an agent, or do you not think it matters? Or
I mean, personally, it obviously depends on your own experiences.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, it really does just depend on the situation and obviously the landlord, but I don't think it makes a difference necessarily. Yeah,
I think it just depends on who the landlord is, because you might absolutely land on your feet and get the nicest landlord ever. Any problems, they'll sort it straight away, they'll be there. You don't then have to call up an agent and use a third party to then get what you need out of your rental. Alternatively, you could have a difficult landlord, you can never get hold of them, nothing ever gets sorted, there's no third party to step in and help. We've had tenants ring up before saying, please can you speak to my landlord, they're not supporting me.
It's because they're usually on holiday.
Yeah,
I
usually.
haven't heard from him for 4 weeks.
He's on a safari. So then, and you're a bit like, well, they're not on that service level, I can't help.
There's
Here's
only
what I'd
so much
suggest
you
you
can
do, but I can't. There's only so much that we can do.
I think it's hard, isn't it, from an outside point of view, because we know how that landlord is going to be. We have tenant fine landlords that are tenant fine, but they've got a portfolio and they self-manage and it's an actual business that they run, in which case you're probably going to have the first scenario where they're very on the ball and they probably won't have any issues. You have got landlords that maybe are accidental landlords that go for tenant fine service because they don't want to spend loads of money because they're an accidental landlord.
Yeah, and they don't want to spend the management fee.
Yeah, exactly, which is understandable in kind of today's economy, but then all we are is basically we market it for them, do the contracts, and it's kind of we'll speak to you when this tenant moves out. Would you say that your opinion is slightly different on that or not? I know for me, if one of my friends came and said to me, which they have done, and a few of my friends went in London actually, which you've got a lot more rogue landlords that really don't come back to you. We're quite fortunate in the Midlands, we don't have a lot of that, but I always say to them, for your first rental I would go through an agent, because I think you've got that support that if something is going to go wrong, or if you can't get hold of your landlord and it's something really awful, or obviously they do get a lot of illegitimate evictions and things like that in London, so I suppose it's like a slightly different realm. But would you say kind of in the Midlands is that would you always recommend going for something that's managed by an agent, or?
I think I'd always recommend going through an agent to begin with, just so that you know that everything is being done properly. I think on your second property then look for let-only landlords and just know if they've got a portfolio, because usually the bigger portfolio landlords are contractors themselves, or they've been in the industry for a while and know what they're doing with the let-only service. So obviously it just depends on the landlord, but I would always recommend for your first rental property go through an agent, just because obviously we work in it, we know what we do, it's all legit.
Be mindful on who your agent is.
As well. check the
come to us, you'll be
reviews.
fine. But if you know, sometimes it's worth speaking to friends that have rented before. They could have a horror story about an agent that they've been to, and you know, they'll advise you to go with a private landlord. Equally, you know,
Could be the opposite way.
could be the opposite.
Yeah.
And
It's all about experience.
it's literally property by property, landlord by landlord, and then depending on what tenant you're putting in there, you could have a tenant that thinks they're not getting the right service, and actually they're in a bit of a dream world and they're wanting way more than what would have been expected.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just, it wouldn't happen. So.
I think it's a good idea to, and I'm surprised that more people don't ask, to ask the service level. Not necessarily be judgmental of the service level, but know the fact that there are different service levels, and know when you're going into your tenancy agreement what service level you are expecting, because I think I know a recent applicant that we had, I think family members of theirs had only ever rented fully managed, not intentionally, but that was their reality.
Yeah.
They then rented and it was tenant fined, and it was kind of like, well,
a shock.
That,
what's the moving process? What's this? What that? Because I know it like this, which again is different agent by agent. But not only that, if you're going from fully managed tenant fined, it's a whole different process. So I always think it's a good idea. We get a lot of students that ask, but I think that's probably parents.
It is parents.
Can you just double check, like, who are we going to be dealing with, sort of thing. But I
always think ask around for advice and then just make your own judgment on it.
Yeah.
It's your own experience.
You just gotta try, and maybe, you know, that's where first time renters would opt for 6 months, because if it is horrific and it doesn't work out, then
you can leave.
Yeah. Alternatively, you could have an amazing 6 months, get the chance to go on to a periodic or another fixed term, and then it's great. Like, you could really land on your feet. I know my sister is renting through a private landlord at the moment, landed on her feet. She's, you know, got a really good relationship with them. She's even looking to potentially buy the property in the future, and she's managed to get a great landlord. Equally, she's lived in Nottingham, for example, not had the best landlords. It's just literally look at the draw. It depends what you're going to get. But also, I think from a tenant's point of view, you get, especially with tenant fine, you get out what you put in. If you're willing to have a good relationship with your landlord, the best it can be, rather than ringing them, shouting, all these things, they're going to want to help you.
It's a symbiotic relationship, isn't it? It's give and take. Which it is give and take, obviously, aside from the legislation and things like that, but it's give and take in terms of your approach, and like you said earlier, speak to people how you expect to be spoken to. Just because your landlord doesn't mean they owe you everything.
And with agents as well.
Especially.
Well, I don't think it's too bad here. I don't think we get too much verbal abuse over the phone.
No. You always
sometimes
get
warranted with frustration.
Yeah.
But I don't think we
I
don't.
think it's important.
Property
Are they
management
swearing, or are they swearing? Are they swearing?
Because they're swearing or at you.
If you're swearing at me,
please don't.
Please
don't.
I think property management would probably disagree. But we fortunately don't deal with that. Right, the last section, I'm going to have to just place the wheel, bear with.
Ooh.
The wheel.
Has the wheel been used yet on the pod?
Yeah.
Oh, we're not the first.
You're not the first, sorry guys.
Whatever.
Special. Okay, I'm going to spin. Now, sometimes, I think the last podcast, we got FAQ of the week, and it really threw me off. So hopefully we don't get that again. Just if anyone doesn't know, that stands for what did you have for tea, which I'm hoping we get, because I don't know anyone's answers, and I had a great tea.
I had a good tea.
I didn't know. Oh.
I'm not doing it, no.
Spin.
Here we go, okay. Cope & Co news alert.
Ooh.
See, this is throwing me off now, because I haven't got one. You know what? Let's go big it.
Just me and Emma just there like,
come on.
what's new?
No, sorry. We're going to do what did you have for tea? Because I want to know what everyone had for tea. So, Emma.
You know, I started the question in the business.
You did.
And
now it's on the pod.
It's only right for me to, really speak about this. I had leftover Chinese, and, I'm supposed to be on a diet, so it's not really the most ideal, but it was really good.
Tasty.
So I'm going to talk you through it. So we had a mixed chicken curry, pork, duck, beef. I think that was all in there. Special fried rice, salt and pepper chips, and then we had some mixed hors d'oeuvres. Seaweed, chicken satay stick, prawn toast.
But it's an extensive, I love it.
Yeah, and then a bit of satay sauce on the
Were you with your
side.
friends?
Salone, Beth, thank you.
Oh, God.
Salone.
Thanks for that reminder.
Sorry.
Anyone watching, if you know anyone that's single, Emma is single. Anywho, Nina, what did you have for dinner?
I had chips, beans, and fish fingers.
Why do you always have these beige dinners?
I love that.
I love it.
tapas.
I respect
Fast
Literally.
mum dinners.
Yeah,
I love it.
that.
Beth, go on, you
I
said you had a good one.
Yeah,
so.
so we had an English pick mix, so there was loads of bits on there. So mum did. She did ham. It was cooked in Guinness, I think.
Oh.
I know, yeah. Cooked
Okay.
ham.
Any leftovers? Or?
Yeah, there actually is at home. I'll bring
Okay,
some in for
Helen.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
I know. Shout out to my mum. Then we had some Cajun chicken. There was some eggs. There was salad. There was rice, and then we had it in wraps.
Wow.
When you said
Yeah.
pick and mix, I was thinking like bubblegum bottles. bottles. I was like, for your tea, that's rogue.
Yeah.
I like
Picky
it.
I like
yeah.
that.
Picky
Picky
tea.
tea. I
Yeah,
love a
picky
picky
tea.
tea.
Pick a mix.
Love
In this
that.
weather is brave, but
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, it was really good.
Sounds
actually.
like it was done right to me.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, and corned
Guinness.
beef. Corned beef was on there.
Oh,
Ooh.
corned beef.
Yeah.
Do you know what? We feed that to the dog, so I think I'm out with corned beef.
Well, maybe
It's
you
hot
haven't
Ralph's
experienced it
diet.
right.
Yeah, you need to try it with
Yeah.
some mayonnaise.
Ralph's
Ooh.
really flexing that diet
Corned
plan he's
beef.
got going on. Corned
He's
beef.
17 this year. I think he deserves it.
Oh. I went to the tasting club last night
Oh,
in
Oh,
Brailsford,
wow.
and I'm
Looks
glad that I
bloody
can mention
lovely.
it. If you are local to Derby, go to the tasting club, and they haven't paid me to say this, but they should. It was honestly incredible. The food, I've shown everyone photos this morning.
Wow.
We went for James's birthday. He was 30 yesterday, and the food was incredible. The service was incredible.
Yeah.
Just the whole experience. And I'm actually going back for my birthday in March, so I'm really excited.
I need to book.
I can't even tell you what I had. I think you have to follow them on Instagram
Yeah.
because they tell you when things are being released. But I booked for like early March when they released the tables at the start of Jan, on the 2nd of Jan.
Right.
And they put a load of stuff on. Like, it's really small and only like 11 tables in the whole thing. So it's really hard because I don't even know what they were. But they brought out like these 3 starters, and the first one had pulled pork, and the pulled pork sounds like really basic. But honestly, it was like I don't even know. It was like a little ball of joy. That's what it was. Yeah, exploded in your mouth with just flavours. And then they did a really sticky soup pudding. And the guy serving it was like this, and really nice. And I thought it was sticky pudding. It's a staple, it's a British staple. Never experienced anything like it. Yeah, it was incredible. So I would